we begin, just to let everybody know, my name is Mary Weber, and I'll be instructing the class. And I'm from Mary Medibles Consulting. I help people with cannabis. If you have questions on making meds or how to use medicaments effectively, I can help out there. But let's go ahead and get this started. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so everybody will see the lessons. Okay. Where do THCA, and CBDA come from? And THCA and CBDA come from the raw plant. So it just naturally develops as the plant grows. And THCA and CBDA have their own medicinal benefits, and as the plant develops, the plant genetics determine if it's THC or CBD dominant, or what ratio it might have, like a 1-to-1 or 20-to-1. You may have heard of that, CBD to THC, etc. The genetics also determine the quantity of trichomes containing THCA, CBDA, terpenes, which are responsible for the smell of plants, flavonoids, which are responsible for the color of plants, and other cannabinoids. And it's important to remember that whatever the plant is programmed to produce, it's set. So it's up to us to learn how to use that effectively. And we're going to scan down here and take a look at the chemical compounds. So we have THC in A, THCA in B, CBD at C, and CBDA at A. Now you might notice the two compounds on the right, B and D, which are THCA and CBDA, are larger than the compounds on the left. Now, why is that? How would it happen that a compound would be smaller? Now, this happens through decarboxylation. So that's why you want to protect your cannabis from heat, light, and air, because it'll limit the loss of THCA or CBDA to your cannabis buds. And you can get airlock humidor type containers to keep buds fresh, which is really handy. I use mason jars because it's easy to grab. And I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone if that's cool, so that we can hear our lesson. And you can unmute yourself, by the way, if you have any questions. But going back to our lesson, we've gone over where do CBDA and THCA come from, what is decarboxylation, and why is it important. Now, why don't we talk about I can't speak today apparently, why you would want THCA, CBDA, THC, or CBD. And the reason you might want some of these compounds Okay, we're here. And excuse me, I'm trying to blow this up a little bit for you. All right, so THCA, why would you want to incorporate that into your treatment regimen? Because it has anti-inflammatory properties, neuroprotective effects, anti-emetic effects, combating nausea and appetite loss, anti-proliferative effects, free radical toxicity, so neuroprotection, has anti-proliferative effects, so it kills breast cancer, or it kills cancer, and it's particularly shown to kill breast and prostate cancers. And THCA, it's important to note this, is 10 times more potent than THC, and it has no psychoactivity. Now, if we come back up here, we'll look at CBDA. So that handles inflammation, epilepsy, anxiety, has anti-proliferative, so cancer killing effects, especially in breast tumors, inhibits appetite for weight loss, and decreased vomiting and nausea. It's 500 times more potent than THC with decreased vomiting and nausea, and 1,000 times more powerful than CBD. Now, THC handles muscle spasticity, glaucoma, insomnia, low appetite, nausea, anxiety, and CBD handles seizures, inflammation, pain, psychoses or mental disorders, inflammatory bowel disease, nausea, migraines, depression, and anxiety. And so these are why you might want to look to some of the 4 compounds. Now, does anybody have any questions?
I noticed that both, what is it? CBD and CBDA both address anxiety. So why would you pick one over the other?
Thank you for pointing that out. CBDA and CBD are shown to handle some of the same things, but the reason you would want CBDA over CBD is because it's so much more powerful, 1,000 times more powerful than CBD. So if you're having anxiety attacks, if it's just really intense anxiety, you might want to look to CBDA because it might drive it home more. So that, or if you just have really bad day-to-day anxiety, you might want to look to CBDA because it might be a bit stronger than CBD for your system for the reason that it's so much stronger in our bodies. And are there any other questions?
I had a question.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how do these different elements work together? Like how does the THC and CBD work together? You see often on the market isolates, and then of course in the plant they're all together. Or how does CBD and CBDA work together or not work together? Does it matter if you have one and not the other?
Yeah, there's an entourage effect, so all of the compounds actually work better if there are more cannabinoids present. So say you want to treat yourself and you're taking in terpenes and THCA and a little bit of THC and CBD and perhaps some CBDA, you're going to have more effects because there's more compounds working in your body and going to work and finding what's going on wrong. So that entourage effect is a big deal because it really does amplify the medicine and make it work better.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate that. Are there any more questions? And when you're dealing with cannabis, entourage effect, I want you to remember that we have the endocannabinoid system that is flowing head to toe through our body. So we have receptors in all of our body parts. In 3/4 of our cells we have receptors. And what's interesting is when they're the raw cannabinoids, so the cannabinoids on the right, they don't fit as well in those receptors and our enzymes in our body as the cannabinoids fit when they're heated up, when they lose this carboxyl group. So when they're raw, they don't fit as well in our system, which is interesting that it makes it so much more powerful. But when they're heated up, when they've been exposed to heat, light, or air, they're smaller and they fit like a jigsaw puzzle into our receptors and into our enzymes. And so they just plug in and fit like a glove. And now let's go over the medicinal and are there any questions over that, excuse me, over the receptors and how cannabis gets to them and treats our body? Does anyone have any questions over that? Okay, then let's move on to what is so great about cannabis, the nutritional content. And cannabis really is a powerhouse of a vegetable, and that's to say the least. The seeds alone contain fatty acids, omega-6, omega-3, omega-9, stearic and palmitic acid. It contains protein, vitamins A, B1, B2, B6, C and E, and minerals like iron and calcium. It contains all known amino acids, and juicing leaves extracts vital antioxidants, minerals and elements found in other rich leafy greens such as kale and spinach, calcium, iron, potassium, carotenoids, zinc, and selenium. The cannabis plant has more variety and abundance of plant phytochemicals stored in the leaf tissue and trichome heads than almost any other species on Earth. So when you're trying to up your nutritional intake, if you're trying to get that, get your nutrition pumped up, you might want to think about inserting some raw cannabis into your system. And terpenes play a big role depending what they are. Terpenes are responsible, like I said, for how plants smell and how cannabis smells. It's such a strong smelling plant. And it's because there are so many terpenes in there. And cannabis shares beta carotene with carrots, limonene with lemons, pinene with pine trees, linalool with lavender, and high levels of anthocyanin with blood oranges and cherries. And anthocyanins are known to be a non-narcotic but highly effective analgesic. So you might want to look for purples in both your food and cannabis. And there are over 20,000 terpenes in nature, and cannabis has over 200. So you can see why it might be so intense smelling. And in addition to its nutritional value, raw cannabis also contains terpenes and the cannabinoids in their acidic form, which provide nearly all the therapeutic effects associated with cannabis. So you really might want to look into incorporating cannabis. Does anybody grow cannabis by chance that's willing to admit it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Does anyone juice it?
No.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got some no's, we've got some yeses.
There's another yes here.
Very good. And that's good if you take advantage of juicing it. It's kind of just something extra to add to your treatment regimen that might be beneficial. Now, there are other ways to take advantage, of THCA and CBDA. For instance, you can actually make an apple cider tincture. So you can just take a little raw bud and just a small medium raw bud in a couple ounces of apple cider vinegar for at least an hour, and you can let it soak up to a month, and you can take that as a tincture. And you want to be careful with the gum tissue around your teeth because it might bother it a little bit, so you might want to rinse afterwards. But it's really interesting. I actually had someone who had called for some advice, and he went ahead and made the apple cider vinegar as a tincture to help out his issues. And he also used it topically. He rubbed it on because he played guitar, and so his hands and stuff bothered him. And so he would rub it on and just feel better. And so he smelled like vinegar, but he felt better. And so he was all about it there. And also, try snacking on the fan leaves. And you might want to grab a bit of raw bud too. Some doctors that are highly respected in the cannabis community suggest that their patients take a little nibble of bud every day. And a cultivator in Oregon I follow treats his fibromyalgia by eating just a few fan leaves every day. So that might be something you could be into. Kind of like instead of an apple a day keeps the doctor away, a nibble of bud a day keeps the doctor away and gets those cannabinoids flowing through you. And you can also incorporate it into soup, sauces, and various meals. But remember, if you're heating up the raw bud, remember you'll be activating the THCA, making it psychoactive. So let everybody know that you're going to be doing that, just in case they'll be having some. But as far as juicing, would anybody be into trying juicing that don't so far?
Sure.
Cool. And because when you think about it, you have all these fan leaves on the plant. And what are they doing for you while it's growing and getting those buds ready? Not much, but they could be doing a lot. So if you want to try to take advantage of this, you can just go ahead and trim the plant. I suggest trimming like 1/2 to 3/4. I trim mine pretty far down. You want to leave enough leaves to obviously still absorb light nutrients. That's important. But you can strip it down to juice all those fan leaves. And then you'll want to wash it just to get the plant debris. So I have a little bath that I was making of baking soda, lemon juice, and water. And then you just agitate really well and make sure all the debris is washed off. And then you can run it through your juicer. And this is the cannabis juice once it's been run through the juicer, of course. And then what you can do just to make it easy to dose is fill a mini ice cube tray, and you can freeze it and then take out individual portions. So I use like a squizzle stick to just pop out the individual cubes, and then I'll go ahead and put them in a water bottle or a smoothie. And so you can go ahead, if you want to make a smoothie in the morning, you can go ahead and make that. That's some additional nutritional benefits you'll be injecting if you do so. So juicing could be a really good benefit. And if you know anybody who's suffering from something, if you happen to grow, if you juice, consider donating your juice to them so that they can take advantage of it and perhaps have some relief from their symptoms. Just a suggestion. But if anybody wants to grow, is anybody looking to grow? I will take that as not necessarily. But Nevada is it is legal to grow if you have a medical marijuana card, an MMJ card. You can grow up to 12 plants, even within 25 miles of a dispensary, but you do want to be sure to know the laws. And I've included a few links here, Leafly, WikiLeaf, and Weed Maps. You can go here and read patient reviews, see what people thought about things, because that might point you to the strain you want to use. And I've used a couple of seed banks in the States. These are the seed banks, I-49 and Elevate Seeds. So the benefit of this is you can use your credit card. You don't have to transfer funds. Otherwise, when you go through Europe, you typically have to transfer funds. I've also done that a couple of times. So if you need any advice as far as going that way, I can certainly help with that. But it's really, really cool what you can provide yourself with when you do grow. Because then, of course, at the end of harvest, you have the buds, but until then, you can juice. But I do want to make it clear, I didn't realize this at first. I just found this out this year, and I was going to trim my plants at harvest, really trim them so I could juice them. But I found out that if you prune your ladies, go ahead and trim those plants. They're not going to harm. But are there any questions so far?
I have a question, Mary. Excuse me.
Yeah.
When you were talking about making a little like bath for the leaves before you can juice them, do you know how much baking soda and lemon juice you put in the water content?
Yeah, I use about a quarter cup of lemon juice and a few tablespoons of baking soda. So almost the same amount, a quarter cup each.
Okay.
So yeah, and then you just mix it all together and you have a wonderful bath solution.
And then rinse it.
Oh yes, thank you. I appreciate that. You want to rinse it really well. And you can also use vinegar, like apple cider vinegar. So if you don't have lemon juice and baking soda, you can dump some apple cider vinegar on them, and it'll do kind of the same scrubbing action as the, baking soda and lemon juice.
Okay. Thank you.
So you just won't be eating bugs. Of course, it could be more iron.
I had another question on the juicing.
Yes.
So I've always heard with fresh juices that if you don't eat them and if you don't drink them in the first few minutes, that a lot of the material oxidizes and you actually don't get the full benefit. Is that true for cannabis, or is it just as strong whether you save it for later, drink it right away? I've always heard that about fruit and vegetable juices.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. So the reason that I like taking cannabis juice is because it nails my muscle spasms, and I have not had it not work any better after it. I've not experienced that personally, so I'm not sure about that. And another thing I wanted to tell everybody, a lady that I knew who had cancer, she had really bad bone pain, and she started taking it. And a day after she started putting this juice cube in her water, she was having really bad bone pain. She never.
Excuse me for interrupting, but can everybody please mute their microphones because there's a lot of background noise.
I should have just got it covered there. All right. And after a day of the cannabis, of using the cannabis juice, she tried to find a spot on her arm that hurt, and she could not. So that's pretty cool, like helping out in somebody in a situation like that. Um, you might want to look to that. Are there any other questions regarding juicing?
And this lady that you were talking about, Mary, so she was applying the juice directly topically?
She was taking it. She was just putting a cube in her water. And then I think she was up to about 3 cubes a day. And it helped her with her bone pain, which is really, really cool. But does anyone else have a question?
I don't have a question, Mary, but I just want to add to that guy's question about how long fruit and vegetable juices stay. I used to work
Oh yeah, you're a juicer.
I used to work at a fresh pressed juice place in Colorado, and we would have to dispose of juices or drink them before 3 days. So it's all the nutrients are well and good 3 days within of juicing. And just refrigerate and keep it in an airtight container.
But then freezing it does preserve it for much, much longer when you freeze it?
Yes.
That's good to have that confirmed since we had those questions brought up. I appreciate that. Thank you, Elisa.
Sure.
So looks like we can freeze our juices to make them last a little bit longer. Just to let you know, I kept some cannabis juice in the fridge just unfrozen, and I was just drinking a little bit of it. And after about a couple weeks, it started smelling almost like fish, because you remember all those vitamins we were talking about it has in it. And just the combination, it just smelled kind of funky. So you definitely don't want to keep your juice out. So I would agree with Elisa. After a few days, you definitely want to make sure to, freeze it or toss it out or something like that, because you don't want to have anything that gets funky. But are there any other questions? And today I just want to go over the terms we went over and make sure there are no questions, that nobody was lost on anything they read or anything like that. And flavonoids, people are usually not aware of flavonoids, that they provide the color to plants, which is important to know. They also have their own medicinal qualities.
Could you zoom in just a little bit, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take the heads up.
So the flavonoids, this is why you were saying earlier to look for the dark colors like the purples,
Yeah. And the flavonoids really are powerful anti-exhausted, that's not a thing. Powerful antioxidants with really powerful anti-inflammatory and immune system benefits. So if you have anything going on in that area, purples might really be a smart thing to incorporate.
What's the best way to find a strain?
The best way is to research. You just want to research everything about the strains. I'll come back down to this little thing. Leaf, where I put on here research strains to grow. If you go on Leafly, WikiLeaf, or Weed Maps, you can read a lot more about it. But what is most impressive that I have found is if you read the patient reviews and see what others have thought about the medicinal benefits. And if you look at the parent strains of what certain strains are, that might point you in the direction, because you can then say, okay, what have people thought about these parent strains? And might they have helpful medicinal qualities? So you can really break it down just by looking at the genealogy of the plant, if you take the time to do so.
When I go to a dispensary, there are just so many choices. How do I narrow that down?
Yeah, and the bummer is now dispensaries, because we used to be able to smell the flower, but now because of COVID, we can no longer smell. So I would highly suggest, before you go into dispensary, doing some research, seeing what they offer, and doing some research on the strains, and just reading again the patient reviews, because those are going to be the biggest pointers of what are going to be beneficial for your symptoms, are the patient reviews, because those, tell an honest story of what people really thought. And it's not a guarantee that that strain's going to work for you, but it makes it more likely. And now that we can't smell, more legwork is required before you go into a dispensary if you're going to have a little bit of knowledge about what you're going to get. But yeah, it has made for an awkward time. Okay, and are there any other questions? And it seems like we have covered basically everything going on here. And if anybody has any questions about anything that has come up today, you can feel free to email me. And this is my contact information here. You can email me, call me, give me a call. Both phone numbers work. And just to let you know, if you are struggling with using medicinal cannabis, don't feel awkward about reaching out, because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have just have products sitting on their shelf for months at a time because they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what they should really incorporate to make their situation better. And there are certain ways, certain places you can look, as we went over, for certain things. So you can use this menu about the THCA, CBDA, THC, and CBD. You can use this PDF as almost a menu to say, okay, what do I need? What do I need? What do I need it to help with? And then you can pick from here and determine what cannabinoid you would like to incorporate. But I hope this can make, this shows why incorporating raw cannabis is beneficial. And if nobody has any more questions, I will go ahead and get on with the raffle. All right, so our winners are Carol, Jack, and Lizzie. And so if you could just let me know what size shirt you would like, I would appreciate it. And I don't have a huge selection of sizes, so if I don't have your size, I'll get to the closest one I can get to. But I will also email you and let you know that you are a winner for today's raffle. But I greatly appreciate everyone coming along for this class.
It looks like somebody might have a question, Mary. Your little bubble up there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, yes. Does anybody have a question?
I wonder if they know to unmute.
Okay. Now, do we have any questions? I don't want to go over anybody, especially if there are any issues unmuting. Alrighty. So it sounds like we do not have questions. Very good.
Do you think they know how to unmute their microphone? Because the numbers keep growing.
The what?
On the little bubble, you know, if people have questions, they touch that little bubble. Now it's at 5.
Oh, what?
Maybe it's just a glitch.
Maybe. Okay, I'm going to ask this
Yes,
for
please.
them.
I think people can also leave comments if they don't have questions in that little message bubble.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Elisa. Just get me here. Oh, they're very nice comments. I appreciate it. And we have Woods. We have someone here from Pinette Hemp Farming. And she says, trial and error. I can say this strain that works for your muscle spasm works wonders for energy for me. And juicing is wonderful. And so it really is about trying a whole bunch of strains because it might just fit into your treatment plan. And then thank you, Mary, for doing this great information as always. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for your comments. I appreciate that. Thank you, Nan. Thank you, Mia. Okay. Well, if
Thanks
that's,
a lot, Mary.
yeah, if that's all, that's,
Thank
I
you.
guess, absolutely. It was nice seeing everyone. I hope you all have a good day and congratulations to the winners.
Boo.
I'm so sorry for those who didn't win. And I will
Thank
call
you.
Take care.
That's great. Take care, everybody.
all right, you guys have a great day.
Bye.
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 Okay, I'll be back, you guys. Enjoy your nice, cool house, huh?